This is an SM Media production. Hi everyone and welcome to episode 6 of SM Media's Road to Cheltenham. I'm Scott McPike, here as always, joined by Calum McClurkin. Calum, pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, pleasure as always.
Pleasure as always. When we say, last week we said this would be a very exciting week with 2 Grade 1s and a big race in Ireland. We didn't expect it to be as weird as it turned out to be.
Yeah, it kind of flattered to deceive, with all the Altior situation and the fog and the John Durkin that was probably should have been the race of the season that no one really could see because of the fog. Strange one.
But let's get into the recap and we will look at everything we're talking about. We'll start off on Friday. Exeter, bold plan, beat the big breakaway over 2 miles 3 furlong in a novices chase. The big breakaway is now out to 12 to 1 for the RSA. Now, Calum, we'll start with you. Like, what was your takeaways for this? Because I was quite disappointed in the big breakaways jumping.
Strange one. It probably set the tone for the strange week that we saw. The big breakaway. What can you say? It was a trip that was blatantly too short for him, and he was niggled along from the start by Robbie Power. He never seemed happy.
He wasn't happy for the start. Puppy.
This was always the plan before Kempton, the 3 miler.
Yeah.
If you look at the Kempton race now, the next destination's likely to go to the Reynolds and at Ascot. So Shan Blue looks like the only realistic horse. It looks like quite a weak race. Yeah. I don't understand why they felt the need to go there and sharpen his jumping before the Cato Star, because it doesn't look a great race to me.
No,
I don't think there's much need for it. But I think the Tizard team's record in the last 2 weeks isn't great.
they're off. They're very much off form.
4 winners at a 36, and the horse is running to form in the last 2 weeks is about 31%.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can excuse it slightly on that front, but bold plan. He's a decent horse in his day. He's rated 135 though, so if you're looking to win an RSA, you really should be putting these away, even if it isn't your best trip or track.
I just thought as well, like we kind of touched on it when he ran at Cheltenham a couple of weeks ago. He jumped perfect that day. Jumped perfect. Travelled well. It just obviously you said he was getting niggled for the start here. Jumped his left, jumped his right. Like it just, I was excited about this. I just thought like, yeah, maybe it won't be his trip. It might be too short, but he'll still get round and still win comfortably. But it was disappointing. But again, he's going to the Cato Star as far as we know, and I think that will probably be a better suited race for him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Also on Friday in Sandown, horse of Evan Williams, Stargate, I thought was very, very impressive off the 2 mile 3 Ballymore trial. He's into 16 to 1 for the Ballymore. I like this horse. I think he's got huge potential. I thought brilliant performance for him.
It was a smart left, that's for sure. You can question the form and behind slightly for a Grade 2 trial, but he did what he could do. He was entitled to do it. His favourite, Nico de Boinville, kind of made it very simple, straightforward, pull out, make all. The quibble will have him is that he's won 2 races now in very deep ground.
Yeah,
and I'd like to see him do it at a bit more springly ground, festival time, if he wants to be a real top class contender. But his effort in Chepstow, the form's been frank there because the third has came out and won since at Ascot. So he could progress, that's for sure, and he's an interesting sort.
Mm-hmm. I think he's with the right trainer, because I think Evan Williams is a trainer that's kind of I've took to in the past couple of years. I think with a good horse, he's a very, very good trainer.
He does find these. I mean, like a Silver Streak, for instance, probably one of his high-profile ones. Esprit de l'Arche had a good novice season last season. Kind of tapered away a little bit towards the end, but yeah, he does have some decent horses, so he's a smart trainer. Definitely.
We'll move on to Saturday. We'll start off in Aintree with Lakeview Lad beating Santini. Just take it away. We'll get to my thoughts on this in a minute, but what was your thoughts on it?
First of all, one for Scotland, and that's always good. Nice to see the Scots kind of winning and turning up there.
Definitely.
Nick Alexander's team at Kynaston are excellent. They've done quite well.
Oh, they've done well with this horse, yeah. They've done very well.
It was a good bit of placement, and I think they might be meeting a couple of these again in the Cotswold Chase, because you can pick up some of these kind of nice wee races. Mind you, if all the fences were there, I don't think he would have won.
No.
He made a big mistake at the 8th, which became the third last. It was an absolute massive blunder. He kind of walked through it. He was a bit lucky to get away with it. Held off Santini after he'd been headed, which is not what you want to really see from a Gold Cup horse.
Do you not think
Native River ran well as well?
I thought Native River was good. Do you not think with Santini though that obviously I think why would the first point I want to make is why is this race getting run at that time of the afternoon when there's going to be a low sun? Why do you not run that an hour earlier when you're going to get you're going to be able to jump more fence? You might not be able to jump them all, but that was my first takeaways. Santini's not. I don't think Santini's winning a Gold Cup off of that, do you?
Probably not, but it was totally unsuitable for him. Nicky Henderson made that point. It should probably be run earlier. They've had similar problems with Old Roan before. I think the signs were there in the Beecher Chase that the sun was going to be problematic all day. So I do have sympathy with him there. There's not a lot he can do about it. I think Santini, he wouldn't have liked the sharp track, and he certainly wouldn't have liked the fences being omitted. If the fences were there, he might have won. But there's always something about his finishing effort.
Yeah,
that plants something in the back of your mind, you know. And I know he hasn't had the pace in these last 2 Cheltenham runs. In the RSA, it was slow. It didn't suit him. Finished second. The Gold Cup, he ran an absolute cracker. Finished second. Didn't have the pace that he wanted either there. So maybe if he gets things actually going his way, which looks to be a truly run Cheltenham Gold Cup, would be his thing. But even then, at 9-1, you just think the way he travels, he can make the odd mistake. The way he hangs for pressure all the time. When you watch a Gold Cup back, you think 50, 100 yards time, he'll beat Albin Photo, and he'll get past him. But after watching that at Aintree, and he headed Lakeview Lad, and he couldn't put him away, you'd think, well, maybe he's just going to always run second all the time. Yeah,
he's always going to be the one. He's always going to be a travelling horse up until the last half furlong. I think for me, I'm not saying he's a bad horse. I just don't see Gold Cup written over him. I just don't. But we'll touch on Native River as well. Native River, I thought ran a very good race after being out for so long. I thought he was impressive. But we'll touch on Frodon, who was also in this race. Can you believe that some people were tapping Frodon for the Gold Cup?
No, he wasn't for me. But he would add more pace to the race, which would help the likes of Santini. But Native River challenged him to the front and batted him off, a bit like Minden in the Ryanair.
Yeah,
Frodon can't lead, can't hold his position. He tends to kind of fade away a little bit. He's a bit one-dimensional in that respect. I think Frodon's the kind of horse that will compete in every sort of handicap off any kind of mark that you want. Because it's at a handicap pace, it's that stride slower. He can dictate matters easier. With a horse like Native River in there, he couldn't do it. And Native River, I think, ran almost his mark at 168. And there's a bit of 50-1 kicking about him for the Gold Cup. There are a lot worse each way bets than him in a Gold Cup.
If it turns up soft, if it turns up
like a bottomless bog, and he backs his form or might bite, maybe that's a bit pushing it a little bit.
Definitely.
But there's far worse plays at a price than him at the moment, I would say.
Definitely. With 2 Grade 1s at Sandown, the first one I want to touch on was the Henry VIII Novices Chase. All Mankind made all, jumped well and won. He's now 8-1 second favourite for the ARKLE. Thought it was impressive again, but is he the right second favourite?
No, I don't think he is. On form, he is, but I don't think Cheltenham is his track, to be honest. I mean, he's been beaten twice in his career, and both have been at Cheltenham, and I don't think that's a coincidence anymore.
Yeah.
On his seasonal reappearance, and Botox has picked him off up the hill quite comfortably. I think the hill found him out in the Triumph as well slightly when he couldn't really take a lead from Goshen. from that angle in isolation, he sets it up for Shishkin if he goes here, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think it does.
He'll bowl out, and Shishkin can just pick him off when he wants up the hill, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't grab him at all. He's done. He did what he did at Sandown in a really good time, in impressive fashion. He jumped him into submission again. He was impressive enough. It looks like Warwick is going to be his next port of call, which would be in February, which would be quite close to the ARKLE, which plants the seed in the back of mind that Dan Skelton, who came out and said that the season's not all about Cheltenham. That's what he said. It can have a negative impact in the mind of a trainer sometimes if you focus on Cheltenham too much. I think that's he's given himself a way out here of dodging this race as well. So even from that Ante-Post perspective, I would have concerns. 9-1, 10-1. He's not for me, but he's certainly flatter tracks. 2 miles, he'll put a lot of horses in trouble, and his 4-year-old allowance will go after the Kingmaker as well. So he'll have to give that weight back, which is about £5 or £6. So that's another negative to consider as well.
Totally agree. We'll move on to the Tingle Creek now. We just want to touch on the race before we touch on the other situation. Politologue made all and won the Tingle Creek. He's now 8-1 for the Champion Chase, obviously going to defend his title. Jumped very well for the front. Just again, Politologue just does what he does. I thought it was good. Like, obviously, we'll get into later on what the other kind of story is here. But what did you think of Politologue?
It was good, yeah. I mean, from the front, he gave himself a wee breather when Grenadine came alongside 2 out, didn't he? And that excess stamina comes into play big time, doesn't he? We know he can stay 2.5 miles. He's beaten Min over that trip, so this is a smart horse in his day. And I know he's probably been he's a little overlooked at times, and he doesn't get the credit he deserves because he seems to be winning these races because certain horses don't turn up or certain horses don't run the race. This is a horse now that's rated in the early 170s quite comfortably now, and the Champion Chase falls apart again. He is the obvious one to take advantage again.
Definitely. Giant with Grenadine as well. Obviously, me and you kind of fancied him to win the race even last week when Altior was in it. Do you think he's maybe just not a Grade 1 type horse?
I thought it was another minor step forward from him. Maybe once a trip as well, but he's only 6, coming 7.
Yeah.
I think, Politologue's arguably shining now when he's 9 going 10. So maybe another season, a season or two, he's with the right man in Paul Nicholls, who's the master with these 2-mile chasers. Probably a bit more time, he can come along quite well as well, I think. So yeah, he's probably one for the future.
Right, let's touch on it. Altior, what was your thoughts when you heard he was taken out of the race? And was it Friday? It was Friday night.
Disappointing, like everyone else. I think there's 2 sides to it. From the punter's perspective, it's really disappointing to see it, but from the owner and trainer's perspective, they have to put the horse first. So that's what you're trying to weigh up. I think Nicky Henderson, I can understand why he did it.
Yeah, I totally agree with him.
I think we know that he handles that ground though, and we know that he can get the trip. We know. I mean, he's done it 6 times before.
Yeah.
He won it in 2018 when it was softer ground than that. I'm not quite sure. I can see both sides of the argument.
I think it is down to last year. Can we make the case that last year the race with Surname took a long time to recover from?
Yeah, for both.
I think this is a similar situation to that. Like, obviously we know he gets that ground. That's not I don't think that was the reason he got taken out. I think it was just because this horse is now a different horse than he was 2 years ago when he was fit. He's had a difficult season last. I think what Nicky Henderson's logic here has been, let's just get him ground. Let's get everything suited for him, and let's go to Christmas. Let's see if we can get the ground he wants at Christmas. Let's just see if we can get him in tip-top condition. I know it's the punters that I feel for as well, who have probably taken their Saturday to watch Altior, because he has that box office horse that we talk about. But I totally agree with Nicky Henderson taking him out, because I think obviously the season he had last year, I think it was the right decision just for his welfare. I think welfare is important welfare is the most important thing for the horse here, and I think with this type of horse who's been through a battle that he had last year that knocked the stuffing out of him and Surname as well. Both horses took a long time to recover from it. I think the right thing's been done for the welfare of the horse.
Yeah, welfare and racing has become a little bit of a loaded term, though.
Yeah,
I don't think he should have used that term, because it's a horse that's ran in this ground at least 6 to 8 times in his career. I don't think it's a total. If he just said, "I'm just minding the horse," he doesn't like the ground. By using the word welfare, that argument is like, well, no horses should be running soft at all. He wouldn't have racing at all.
Right.
It's kind of like you could pack up shop and end it just there if that's the case. I just think he should have probably used a bit of a lesser tone on it. He should have said he doesn't like this ground. He's 10 going on 11. Last year took a lot out of him. And in hindsight, he's right, because Politologue would have given him a big race. It would have taken a lot of time for both of them probably to recover. They probably would have both had to go straight to Cheltenham.
I think as well, what I noticed as well, that Nicky Henderson had the first two favourites in Saturday at Sandown at, I think, was 147 and 1211. They both get turned over. So would you be more angry at the fact that Friday he takes him out when he did on Friday, or does he take him out after the second race? Because he wouldn't have ran anyway after that. I think I would be. But as well, the way I kind of look at it is, and I've spoke to a couple of people, and obviously I know a couple of people who work at race courses, and they basically said soft ground in December is a lot different from soft ground in March. And it is the case of, with Altior, is Cheltenham the be all and end all with this horse? Like, do you take him out here, give him a run at Christmas, give him a run in the race in February at the Game Spirit, then go to the Champion Chase? Do you take all the necessary precautions here and make sure that everything's suited in his favour? Because I text you right after the announcement, like, there's something weird about this, because he done this as well last year in a race. I can't remember what race it was, but he took him out the day before he was meant to run. And
yeah, that could have been handled a bit better as well.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered when he's pulled out, but you can't go and state from the start of the season that Tingle Creek's going to be his return target.
Yeah.
And say his work's unbelievable, it's fantastic, I can't believe what he's doing, and then pull him out like that with the excuse that doesn't wash with the form book. It just doesn't. I mean, the Surname. I think in Henderson's part, and he's entitled to do this because and so the owners, because they've got a connection with the horse of training for 5-6 years.
Yeah, and
it's totally their decision. But it was a fear to make the same mistake twice again with the Surname race. The Surname race, that was genuine heavy ground. Yeah. He was taking on the best rated horse on the planet at the time, that still is
in the
jumping world, over 2 mile 5, over 5 extra furlongs.
Yeah,
and that is a different environment to what he was being pulled out of in the weekend, over a trip that we know that he's 20 for 20 over, and in ground that he's acted on in about a third of his races probably. Now if he, again, I just think if he came out and said it's just not worth the risk and ended it there, then I think that would have been fine for me. That's all.
Yeah, I think there was certainly. I think the interview. I'll touch on the interview quickly with Lydia Hislop. I thought at first when I watched it, I thought, I don't really agree with a line of question, but see, watching it back, I do think she was asking the right questions that I don't think Nicky Henderson would want it to be asked. Now, it's different in that situation when you're hearing, after a decision like that, somebody's asking you tough on-the-spot questions. But at the end of the day, it's not just about the owner and the trainer. Like, everybody that backs Altior has got an interest in this horse. Like, everybody wants to see Altior fit and healthy first and foremost, but we also want to see the best horses turn up. And it turned into a bit of a. It didn't turn into a bit of a farce, but I think the interview didn't paint the kind of situation in the best glory when I watched it back. And I do actually think Lydia Hislop was totally fair to ask the question she asked.
She was, yeah. It was a kind of grueling 10-minute interview. Fair play to Nick Henderson for coming out and actually doing it as
Yeah,
well.
totally agree. Yeah,
But the owners, he knows the horse. The owners know the horse, and the jockey knows the horse as well. And Henderson didn't have a winner all day, all weekend actually, which is unlike him. It was probably that he did say maybe a bit of rain, and he would have actually ran because it would have loosened up a bit. It's kind of sticky ground, so that might not have helped, and that seemed a general trend throughout these horses that they don't kind of quite like this kind of tacky ground.
Yeah,
and that's what it might have been as well. I just didn't like the use of the word welfare from him.
I think welfare is everything to a horse.
Yeah, indeed, but and the heavy ground as well, because it wasn't heavy.
It wasn't heavy.
It was soft.
Yeah, I mean, last year I'm pretty sure the ground last year was heavier than it was this year for the Tingle Creek, if I'm correct.
And 2 years ago.
Aye, and Altior won it obviously 2 years ago, but I do think it is the case of let's not risk another Suriname situation like last year.
Yeah,
I think that's what I think. If he'd come out and said that, then I think everybody would have kind of been fine about it. But I think now, just because, as you said, it's been kind of escalated into another situation. It's turned into a horse. But I'm going to ask you one last question before we touch on. We've got a few other horses to touch on. Will we see Altior again?
Yeah, I think we will. Yeah, I think we will. I think we'll see him in the Desert Orchid, and then hopefully the Champion Chase.
And as well as that, we'll move on to Navan on Saturday, where we saw a horse I really, really thought was going to be big over fences. The Big Getaway was beat by Conflated. I thought the Big Getaway was very disappointing. I would say this was probably my most disappointing horse of the week for me. I just expected so much more. Third in the Ballymore last year, I was very, very disappointed with how this horse ran.
Yeah, he took two very nasty false steps early on in the race.
Yeah.
The first, he kind of pecked and landed at the first. The second, when he was going round the bend, almost his weight still gave way. At one point, maybe that knocked a little bit of confidence out of him. Maybe it gave him a wee bit of a scare, but his jumping was okay at times. And he get challenged by Conflated, and he get quite tired. But yeah, it was disappointing. There's no other way to cut it. Willie Mullins' novice chasers have been operating at a very high level. Yeah. I think it's about 70-75%, something like that. So to see him not win that kind of race first time out, it is disappointing, and he has a lot to prove now. Yeah,
definitely. And we'll move on to Ante Dufresne, who won the 2 mile 1 novices chase. He looked in a bit of trouble, but jumped pretty well to recover. 16-1 now for the Arkle. Is this horse a Cheltenham horse, do you think?
No, I don't think he is. I think he'll stay in Ireland because Gordon Elliott mooted the Powers Cup for him, which is an April target in Fairyhouse.
Yeah.
So I don't think Cheltenham's on his mind, and I'd understand that because last year he kind of showed signs of fragility, came out of nowhere. I think they're quite keen to mind him. There's no need to rush as well. I think a step up and trip might suit him as well. His jumping got him out of trouble.
Yeah.
2 out and 1 out. Beaten Bittard, who's a useful horse. I mean, he might be one to take out for Cheltenham and maybe a Grand Annual, something like that.
Yeah, quite possibly. And we'll move on to the bumper in Navan on Saturday, where we saw Kilcrut, I believe that's how you pronounce it, won very well, was a very impressive winner for Patrick Mullins. Into 11-1 for the bumper. I thought it was very, very good, Calum. I really, really like this horse.
Yeah, it was good. 9.5 lengths win. Held up from the rear, showed a good turn of foot. It was impressive. It was stylish. Patrick Mullins was raving about him afterwards. He doesn't take a lot of work to get fit. You know, he's quite athletic, sprightly, in the same colours as Appreciate It, of course. Yes. So I think he could be Cheltenham Festival bound. He certainly looks one for it. You know, he looks tailor made for it, doesn't he?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Time. He looked pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move on to Sunday in Cork. Shakan Persois returned and won well, first time out. Now into 3-1 for the Champion Chase. What was your thoughts on this, Calum? Because I've got kind of two things. I think it wasn't the best race for him, but again, he jumped okay. He didn't jump excellent, but I thought it was a pretty good thing to get him out kind of this early in the road to Christmas, and I think I certainly feel more confident about him than I did last year.
Yeah, Cork's not a galloping track, didn't really suit him that much, I don't think, but he dealt with it well. He was a class act to the race, and it was a bit of a burn up top. He picked them off quite easily, like he should. But he did look, to my eye, that he was carrying a fair bit of condition as well. So I think he'll improve massively for the run. He did last year when Altior turned him over, and then he beat Min. So I think there's probably about £10 worth of improvement there, and taking his current mark, that'll probably get him up to that, maybe beyond. If they keep him right, which is always a challenge with him, it seems he's a worthy favourite, isn't he?
Do you think 3-1's a bit too short at this time of the year for the Champion Chase?
I was tempted to row in at 92 before it, so I'm not going to be tempted now. But if he gets there, what price will he be? That's what we've got to think.
Yeah, I think that as well. We'll just touch on Cashback as well, who was also in this race. Fell second time in the past 2 weeks. I just think Cashback's not the best jumper. I think the horse is a good engine, but I just don't think he's got the jumping.
Yeah, his recent record tells you that, doesn't it? I mean, he's prone to the big mistake, and he made one again. So it takes a big leap of faith to get your cash back in him, because he's doing your cash. Definitely.
We'll move on to Punchestown. One horse to mention, Min won his third John Durkin in a row. Now, what we like to do is, I like to think that we like to analyse races, and we like to watch how every horse jumps. We didn't see a thing. We're just relying on what everybody said. Min won, Tornado Flyer run a cracker in second place, Mellon third, Battle Over Doy in fourth, and Allaho was very disappointing as well, but we heard that he made 2 big mistakes early on. Calum, obviously, we're not going by what the race was like, but what do you kind of think, what do you kind of take away for this race?
The main takeaway from this race is that it should have been ran in the Punchestown card on Tuesday, and not on Sunday. Punchestown had a meeting that started at 12:25 with seven races in it, and you bump that up to 20 to 12, quarter to 12. You can squeeze this race here easy, and people can see it. It's a spectator sport at the end of the day, and you couldn't see anything. But I think Min winning a third John Durkin is a great achievement. 3 different riders as well, and it's probably quite notable. Patrick Mullins, Paul Townend, and Ruby Walsh.
Very good.
Guess.
Yep.
To use my logic there at the top of the head. Tornado Flyer was really a good race. I think Mellon did as well, by the sounds of it. He was also upsides and took a bit of a blow to come back. And Allaho made 2 mistakes. I wouldn't write him off completely, I think.
Nah, I wouldn't either.
Drifting him out to 16-1 for a Ryanair is a bit of an overreaction from bookmakers, considering nobody really saw anything. I mean, Min does what he does. It's a 6th win at top level, so he's worthy Ryanair favourite for sure.
He's 7-1 for the Ryanair. He's still not favourite. Imperial or 6s for what I've got. I'm amazed. I'm amazed that Min's not favourite, because again, he's done it last year. He's won the race very well last year, and I think he's beat a better level of horse than Imperial Aura has this year in very, very tough conditions. So I would think Min would be favourite, but we are going to touch on the Ryanair later on in the show, and that is our recap for the week. Let's touch on the Ryanair Chase. This is the race last year which saw Min finally break his Cheltenham duck. I love this race, Calum. I think it certainly is better between the Champion Chase and the Gold Cup to have this type of race for the horses that might not get both trips. I think this is one of my favourite races of the week every year.
It's starting to establish itself as that. The last 4 or 5 renewals of it have been quite classy, I think.
Yeah.
So it's starting to stamp its authority on it, even though it's an intermediate trip. But it's not an afterthought anymore for possible Gold Cup horses or possible Champion Chase horses. It's a proper target there, I think.
Yeah. Let's look at the betting. Imperial Aura leads the market at 6-1. Min, the defending champion, leads 7-1. Sam Crow and Lost in Translation at 10s. Clan de Zobo at 12-1. Aplotar and Alaho at 14-1 and 16-1 bar. I will start with Imperial Aura, the favourite. I think as well, obviously won the Close Brothers last year. Was very, very impressive that day and has obviously been very, very impressive in his 2 runs since. Do you think he's the right favourite?
No, I think Min should be favourite, but he's an improver. That's kind of why I think he's got this attractive profile of him. There might be more to come where we kind of know where Min stands. Could possibly well be. I mean, he's quite flexible. This is going to be his trip for sure. His form this season's working out quite well, I would say. Interested where he goes next. It would probably be something for about Christmas, New Year.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
Maybe something at Cheltenham New Year. He's very good. I think he's also versatile, and he'll press Min more than last year, I think. So he's certainly interesting, but he's a bit too short, I think, for me.
Yeah, I think that as well. Yeah, we'll move on to Min, 7-1. Now, I think Min's a really, really good chance here because it's just kind of the thing with me is with this type of race, you want somebody that's been there and done it. You want someone that's got the Undisol was probably the perfect example. Undisol was very, very impressive the year he won because he'd had that kind of build up over the last 2 years. So I really, really like Min this year as well. I thought I did fancy him last year and he obviously delivered the goods, but just that experience for me, I think, is so important in a race like this.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, he's won 6 Grade 1s, hasn't he? So
yeah.
He really does set the mark, and the handicapper agrees. He's 169, and that's £6 higher than Imperial Aura's current mark. So he's also hit 172 before. So the handicapper thinks he might be slightly in the downgrade. The thing about Min is he did have to hang on last year towards the line slightly. You know, Aplotar and St Calvados were closing in every stride.
Yeah.
He fended off Frodon for the early leads. He probably did a little bit too much in the first mile as a result to do that. There's going to be, looking at the market, there's a lot of potential front runners here that could take him on and set this up for a closer. That would be my nagging doubt about him at the moment. But yeah, he should be favourite in my eyes, and he clearly sets a standard though.
Yeah. Let's move on to the 2 10-1 shots and the 2 most infuriating horses in training. Firstly, Sam Crow at 10-1. We thought we were going to see Sam Crow this weekend. He didn't. Obviously, was a non-runner. I imagine because of the ground. I didn't actually read into why he was. Yeah. 10-1. Obviously, won the Marsh last year. But if you're backing Sam Crow at 10-1 in December for a race in March, you're putting a lot of faith in this horse that I don't think he's warranted over the past couple of years.
No, but he's 2 for 2 at the Cheltenham Festival, which is quite something. He obviously likes the place. I think Davy Russell was mooting yesterday that from his hospital bed that 3 miles might be his next target. He might go to Savills Chase,
possibly.
So he might go up and trip. So around Cheltenham, I don't think the Gold Cup trip would be very doubtful, I would say. But
no.
He doesn't find much when in front either. You know, we saw that last time when he won the Marsh he just fended off Mellon in dramatic fashion, to say the least. But he gets it done in March, and if he does something again badly around Christmas time and he's forgotten about, and maybe the bookies going to take a chance on and push out a bit further, maybe a more glamorous each way price at 14, 16-1, something like that. His Cheltenham record alone would entitle a bit of temptation.
Definitely.
He's rated 160, so officially he'll need to improve a bit as well. But he's capable. He's got some engine on him on his day.
Definitely. We'll move on to Lost in Translation at 10-1. We thought obviously starting the Gold Cup last year, but was very, very disappointing in the Betfair Chase. Do we think now that this is potentially where the horse's trip at Ryanair? Do you think he's now potentially leaning towards healing the Gold Cup?
I don't think so. I think he'll persevere the Gold Cup. You know, you don't get that close. You know, being third over the last. He was travelling very well. Looked the likely winner at some point. Maybe get in front too soon. I think if you get that close to the Gold Cup, you're definitely entitled to go there again, try again, and I expect them to do that, even though Native River is on target to go there as well. I think Tizzars won't have any doubts about running both of them. I think I'll be 80% sure that he'll go there instead of the Ryanair.
I think that as well. I think he's, and unless something happens between now and then, like he completely bombs out again, I think he'll end up here. But I think he's definitely a Gold Cup horse. Clandazobo 12-1 now. With Clandazobo, I am telling everyone right now that this is the King George winner.
He could win the King George, but he's not turning up to Cheltenham. So.
No, he's not. I don't think he's going to turn up here. He's recording I think he's 1 for 6 going left-handed. And he was very, very disappointing last year at the festival when a lot of people I know had tipped him up. I just don't think he's a Cheltenham horse. I think that obviously proved he's not a Cheltenham horse. But we'll move on to Applotard at 14-1. I'm kind of stuck with Applotard a bit because I think he's a very, very good horse, but I think 14-1 is possibly a bit high because it was very, very well thought of getting into the race last year. Finished third, was quite disappointing his first time out this season, but you can't tell me that 14-1. I think 14-1 is a massive price for him. I think he could put that right over Christmas.
Yeah, I think it is quite big. He obviously downed Shack and Persois at Christmas in Leopardstown. We might go there again, but he showed in his reappearance that 2 Mile might be a bit sharp now. Maybe once a trip, so maybe we might see it out a bit better. He made a lot of mistakes, I think, the Ryanair. He was a bit disappointing. He was 74 favourite, and he was only a 6-year-old as well. That's quite inexperienced to take on a horse like Min as well and get that close. It was probably a better effort than it was given credit for at the time. Yeah. I think the reappearance run has put a lot of people off because it's a race that he should have won odds on. You'd have expected a lot more. Yeah. But if it develops as an insufficient trip for him now, 14-1 is very big. You know, he should be more of a 10-1 chance for me.
Yeah, I think that as well. Allaho's now 14-1. He get pushed out over the weekend with a disappointing run in the John Durkin. I really, really thought Allaho was kind of my tip for this race, and I'm not completely put off of him yet. But I would like to see him again before I put my eggs in Allaho's basket for this race.
And he is exact same weight as Sampro of 160, so it does need to improve a little bit, and you're dependent on that RSA form and him finding that level again. He's another one that probably be experimented with trip-wise as well. 3 miles, he could go to the Savills Chase quite easily. He reportedly made 2 bad mistakes, according to David Mullins. He was still bang there, 4 out, and I think a mistake there finished him off in the foggy John Durkin that we didn't quite see. We have to take everything in trust there, but he's certainly drifting him out like that. It seems to be a bit much. Because I think he is certainly talented, and he was held up apparently as well in the John Durkin. That would have suited him. He would rather be much more prominent. Again, as an interesting pace angle against Min. Yeah. Applotard run his best prominently. Frodon's run his best race quite prominently. Sampro did quite well relatively from the front in the march. There's that Mellon as well likes to be from the front. Caribbean Boy won from the front.
Yeah, so it's going to be
potentially an absolute burn up here in this race.
Definitely. Well, 16-1 bar. Have you got any horse? I've got a few, but is there any horses you think at the outside of the bet that could potentially have a squeak?
I think you can make a case for quite a few here, but I'll run in 4. I think Mellon should go here instead of the Gold Cup. I'll bring photo there, so the Donnellys should probably go with Ryanair with this horse, and I think 20-1 for him is very fair in my opinion, given his Cheltenham record. He runner up 3 times, I think. So him, Tornado Flyers improving, he might have a squeak. Each way price is quite similar. Animix, if he goes there. So there's another 3 Willie Mullins horses that have potential. Caribbean Boy and Angel's Breath are 2
Angel's Breath,
he could win for Nicky Henderson if they get Angel's Breath fit. He did some decent novice form last season. I think
he was very good last year.
He was probably going to take quite high rank, I think. It's just whether they can get him back in time, and Caribbean Boy could be anything in truth. So there's a lot of candidates. Real Steel as well. potentially for Nichols. There's a lot of horses that could end up here.
Yeah, I've got a few just to mention. I want to mention Fakir Doudary at 20-1. I don't think Fakir Doudary ran his best the other day. It was at over 2 miles. I think he's definitely a 2 mile forward. We saw in the Drinmore he was very, very good that day. 20-1, I think, look, is quite big for him just now, and I hope we see him over Christmas at a big intermediate trip. I'm a fanboy of Faugheen at 25-1, and I'm gonna, whether he goes or not, I don't know what the plan is with Faugheen, but can you imagine if Faugheen was to win at 13 years old in a Ryanair? How unbelievable would that be?
It would be quite something. I think he had a setback, so he'll miss Christmas.
Yeah.
He had a minor setback, but apparently he was going quite well before it. It's nothing too major, I don't think. So there's an outside chance we might see him, yeah.
Here's hoping. Last one I want to mention is a horse that impressed me last year was Simply the Bets. It's sitting about 33-1. Was quite disappointing in the Paddy Power, but again, we're hoping he could make a recovery and kind of come back to himself. If he does, I think 33-1 could be very, very big just now. So they would be my 3 kind of outsiders. You're the statistician on here. What's your kind of stats to follow when we're picking the winner of this race?
Yeah, a couple of these stats just to show that it's a better kind of thought of race recently, really. 5 of the last 9 winners have been aged 7. So that seems to be the magic number. Nothing under 6 has won it. A 10-year-old won it in 2010, I think. So between 7, 8, and 9, it's your typical age for these races. 6 of the last 9 winners have been sent off 7-2 or shorter.
Right.
But only 2 of them are favourites. It's quite something. So it's a good race probably for your second favourite backers. The favourites that won it, Undersow 2017, 2016, Voiture was utterly brilliant.
Who shouldn't have ran in that race.
Yeah, should have went Gold Cup.
Should have went Gold Cup.
So that's for another day. Ireland have trained 4 of the last 5 winners, but in the 5 races before that, they were all British.
Yeah.
So again, it's another slight change, a recent trend there for this race. The last 5 winners of this have been rated between 166 and 176.
Right. Okay.
So on average, talking about 171, 172, that's a higher average overall rating than your previous 5 Gold Cup winners. Yeah. At the moment, between 2010 and 2015, winners were rated between 161 and 169. So you're looking at an improvement of £5 over the last 5 years about the race. So it's a steadily improving race of that attracts classy sorts, as we kind of suspected and hinted earlier on.
Brilliant. That's why you're on here. You give the punters you just tell the punters what they need to know. I love it.
A wee slightly different angle, yeah. I mean, basically, the takeaway for this race is go to something that's pick the second favourite, pick an Irish trained horse, and pick the class of the race, I think.
And we'll just finally, I'll ask you who you think is the winner for this race.
At the prices of chance, Appletard each way.
Appletard, and you will find out my pick later on in the show, and that is our look at the 2021 Ryanair Chase. We'll take a look at what's coming up this week, and we have the December Cheltenham meeting where we will see a lot of exciting races. We'll start off on Friday where we will see the rescheduled Peterborough Chase over 2 mile 3 furlong. I am sweetening a horse here, Calum, and I think Mr. Fisher at 4-1 is a very, very good price. I think he's going to bounce back here.
Yeah, he's got a chance, of course, off 155. As long as the rain stays away.
Yeah, I think it could end up good. It could end up good. I think with what we're hearing correctly, it could. It's good to soft just now, but if it stays good, there's no rain, it could be good by Friday.
Yeah, I could see him back on that trip. You know, I mean, the fact he's rearranged is probably top notch. I don't think shows his best around Cheltenham. He's current favourite. I'd take the Henderson pair on with Dolos.
Yeah, possibly.
11-2. He's rated 160. He's the highest rated here. He's difficult to place. He ran quite well at Cheltenham the first time in his career. He was 4th in October, behind Rouge Vif. He had to give £5 to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It wasn't a bad effort, and he needed it. And he shaped as if he needed further than 2 miles that day. So a step up and trip here, off levels. he's actually getting weight from the Henderson pair. He's getting £3 off Mr. Fish and £6 off Top Notch.
Right.
And I think him at 11-2 in comparison to the 41.72 about the Henderson pair might be a touch of value there.
Definitely. See, just before we move on to the other races, why on earth was Nicky Henderson saying that Altior was potentially going to go at the Peterborough Chase? I know he said it was potentially if it was at Taunton he would have run it. There was no way he was running this Altior over 2 miles 3, was he?
No, not at Cheltenham.
Not at Cheltenham.
I think he was just mooting the idea if they rearranged it at Taunton, because Taunton's a very sharp pace orientated track, so that might have worked for Altior. But I think he was just trying to prove the point that the horse was just fitting well and he was just minding him. So
definitely. Right. We'll move on to the Caspian Caviar Gold Cup on Saturday over 2 mile 4 furlong. This is a very, very exciting renewal. There's a lot of good horses turning up here. We've got likes of Master Tommy Tucker, Al Dancer, Sea Padge. What do you kind of think about this race? Is it anything kind of catching your eye?
I'm leaning towards Windsor Avenue of Brian Ellison's. Hopefully this will be one for the north. I think, I like Master Tommy Tucker and Al Dancer and Sea Padge, but they're all rated mid 155. It'll have to take a smart performance there to win. Windsor Avenue is off 148. It's 2.5 length defeat to Imperial Aura at Carlisle in his last start. Looks a very decent chunk of form now. He was going to improve for the run, and I think Brian Ellison's reportedly quite bullish about his chances. So he'd have a chance. Another one at a price is Champagne Mystery of Henderson. He's 25 to 1. I think if he captures some of his novice form, I think maybe potentially he's interesting at a price.
I think I quite like Cool Cody at 7 to 1, obviously the winner of the Paddy Power. Still off a mark of 143, which I think is very, very well in for a race like this. He could be, if he performs the way he did in the Paddy Power, I think he could be very, very hard to beat.
Yeah, you'd think though that he would. The rest would cotton on about, well, don't give him a lead.
Aye.
I don't think he can make as many mistakes as he can, but he can improve from that effort. So he's certainly up to defying the mark. He's one of many players in this, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a very, very exciting renewal, this race. Another hot race at Cheltenham, we've got the International Hurdle, where we will, as far as we know right now, we are likely to see the return of Goshen. Now, with Goshen, we've touched every week. I think Goshen's coming back this weekend and he gets pulled out. So again, I'm sitting in the fence here. But if Goshen turns up here, I think he's got a very, very good chance. I would quite like So Royal at 6s, but again, has he ran too many times over a kind of short space of time? But what's your kind of thoughts on this race?
I would be queuing up to take on Goshen just as a result of his previous exploits of he should have been running out before, but Gary Muir team now seem to be in form.
Yeah.
So if he wants to be a champion hurdler, you have to see him at least going very close to winning this. But making all in a triumph and jumping right is one thing. Doing it against seasoned operators here, I think there's a lot of rock solid mid 150, high 150 horses here. He will not get away with it if he's as wild and wayward as before. So it's all about harnessing his brilliant talent, Goshen. I'd have my doubts first time out. I'd certainly have my doubts at the prices. 15 to 8 makes absolutely no appeal to me. But there's a list of contenders that he can take on here. You've got Bally Andy, Chittabello, Somerville Boy, Song for Someone, Silver Streak. I mean, there's plenty of them that you can pick from.
Yeah, I mean, if he wins this
is good. If the ground is good, I would probably lean towards Silver Streak slightly.
Yeah.
I think Chittabello could also run a big race. He would probably be quite close, I'd imagine. And I'm quite happy to see Somerville Boy over this trip. I've never liked him over 3 miles. Finally, the penny's starting to drop. He's not without a chance. I think he's 9 to 1, so each way angle there, if it starts raining, he'd certainly be of interest, I think.
My thinking with this is if Goshen was to turn up and win convincingly, I think nobody can knock that this horse has got serious potential. But again, you're just worried about. I mean, I said last year before he turned up at Cheltenham, there was no doubt he was the best horse in that race. But he's jumping, the way he jumped, he's right. The way he just kind of went, it was just a seriously confusing horse to follow. But if he turns up here, he's going. I think this is the best race to run him in because it's left-handed. we'll see what he's like. We'll see what he's like with a kind of smaller field and just let him jump and just see what he's like. If he turns up and wins this comfortably, I think Epatant's got a challenge in his hands with Goshen.
He does. Possibly. He's quite erratic though, and I think
that should worry. That should worry.
I think he might be better right-handed as well. And Epatant, given the way Epatant just travels over horses sometimes, having something like Goshen to aim at would be a dream for us, surely.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, I think that as well. But I'm quite looking forward to seeing that race. Just a quick one to mention at Doncaster, we've got the Grade 2 Juvenile Hurdle. I've got probably a map of the week on here. Monmouth for Paul Nicholls at even money. Not the best price, but I think he's the best horse in this race. I was really excited. I think he's run once a couple of weeks ago and he was very, very impressive that day. So I think Monmouth here could be a very, very good chance for Paul Nicholls. Yeah,
there's another similar juvenile trial at Cheltenham as well. So
yeah,
it's probably a big day for the Brits in that. I think Duffel Coach run at Cheltenham again.
Yeah.
I think Elliott's running another one in that Doncaster race. I think splitting them up because there's no Irish racing this weekend, so we can maybe send a few over. It's another weekend that we'll find out more about these juveniles. And Monmoral certainly has the potential to be useful.
I think that is your look at what's coming up this week. We'll move on to our Ante Post Picks, and we will just look over the screen at what Ante Post Picks we have so far. Calum, I just want to ask you as well, just while we're Ante Post Picks on the screen, if you to pick a captain of your team so far, if you to pick a Roy Keane that was just going to get the job done and lead your team get into the festival, who would it be?
As a single, it would be Holy Macapony at the moment. I think he's a rock solid horse for an Albert Bartlett. I think all he has to do is have a nice wee run in between now, Christmas at 3 miles, show that he can handle the trip, which I think he will.
Yeah.
And he'll go there. I don't think there's a great deal of depth in the race. I think hopefully Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott send their classier horses over shorter trips, and he can kind of take advantage in an attritional Albert Bartlett. I'd be very pleased at a price of 20 to 1 for him at the moment.
Yeah, another solid. That was a very solid pick from you. I would say my captain has yet to be revealed. I'm going to reveal him this week on the show. Do you mind if I start?
Go on then.
I've got 2 this week. And Calum has 1. So already, you're in catch up. You'll need to get
2 next week.
2 next week. Brilliant. I am going for. I'm amazed it's took me this long to tip him up because I thought he's went short in price this week. But I am going for the captain of my ship last year, and he's the captain of my ship this year. Min at 7 to 1 for the Ryanair Chase, defending champion. I just think, as I said, he's everything you said about stats for the Ryanair. He just ticks all the boxes. He's been there, done it. He's one of the highest rated in the betting so far. Jumps well from the front. Just everything about Min just screams to me again that he's gonna go here and defend his title. I'm going for Min at 7 to 1. My second one this week, I am going for Kilcrew at 11 to 1 for the champion bumper. I've got not a wee problem here, but I've got obviously Sir Gerhard's 4 to 1 favourite. I am hoping Sir Gerhard doesn't go here. I'm hoping Sir Gerhard goes novice hurdling because I know it's been mentioned in the Elliott camp. We've heard it from a few people that Sir Gerhard could be going novice hurdling before Christmas. So if that's the case, I'm going to tip up Kilcrew at 11 to 1 because I think he is very, very good. I was probably more impressed with him this week than I was with any other horse. Mullins' team, Mullins' record and bumpers is tremendous. Patrick Mullins, one of my favourite amateur jockeys, is probably going to take the ride. I am going for Kilcrew at 11 to 1 for the champion bumper.
Yeah, two solid selections, aren't they? I mean, I don't think you can knock any of them. I just think maybe something is lurking in the Ryanair. I think there's a lot of potential protagonists. Yeah. But we know what Min's all about. We know he sets the standard. We know he's definitely going to go there.
Yeah.
So, and Kilcrew did look smart. He's good enough to serve up to Sir Gerhard.
I mean, this time last week I was thinking of Allaho for this race, but I'm not completely put off Allaho. I just think the more I look at it, Min is the obvious pick here for me for this race. And last year he got me out of a lot of trouble. So let's stick the faith with Min again. Now, who is yours this week for your Ante Post portfolio?
Mine is Calm of Fire in the Pertomp final.
Okay.
Handicap hurdle. He's 20-1. There's a bit of 25s early in the week. That's been snapped up. It's been snapped up because he's got an entry in a qualifier in Carlisle on Sunday. And if he takes this up, then it's obvious to me that that's where he's going to go. There was mixed messages about his stable tour, suggesting that he might go novice chasing instead this season. The fact that he's not been out already, and the fact that he's got this preliminary entry, and there's a lot of them in Ireland as well, over the Christmas period, these kind of qualifiers, suggests to me that they want to go down this route. Gordon Ellick's won the last 3 Pertomp finals, twice with Sarda Berley, once with another Gigginstown horse in Delta Work in 2018, who developed into a horse that went off 92 for the Gold Cup last year. He's rated 170 or so. Calm of Fire, I think, was in everyone's notebook when he fell at the last in the Martin Pipe, when he was coming with a really strong challenge. The Boss's Oscar was 5th in that race, and those were the 2 I think that most people would take him out for the Pertomps. We've already had a gamble in that race with Tower Bridge. He'll be off 145 for it. He's quietly qualified and market raising for the O'Briens when he was 4th.
Yeah,
that was a few weeks ago. I think Calm of Fire is a better horse. He's officially rated 145 right now, but if he goes to Carlisle, which I hope he does, it's 148 that we'll be racing off, and he has to qualify and find a way to get within maybe 150, 152 would probably be my limit.
Where would you want him to finish though in that qualifier? Where would you want him to finish?
Well, the top 6 qualify, so
it's a shambles, isn't it?
Would be great, isn't it? And that's the way it works. That's how these handicap plots develop. You know, fortunately, I've also got back to a bridge when it was a plot at the time, and I just spotted it on the day and thought I've got to take this because I can see what's happening here.
Yeah.
So I've got a bit of security in this, and I don't mind if he goes novice chasing and he goes elsewhere. That's fine, but I don't think they're going to do that because you've got Envoy Allen, who's got the 2.5 mile division seemingly sewn up.
Yeah.
Monkfish looks outstanding candidate already in the 3 mile division, and 2 mile division Shishkin's get that booked. So I don't see any advantage of going novice chasing this season.
Not at all. Not at all.
Off a mark of 148 at the moment, if he can preserve that, he's a big chance. I know the others, people were saying the Boss's Oscar, he might be the one, but there is a side market in Sky Bet of the reverse forecast with these 2 already, and it's 80-1. So if we want a savour of that, that's also interesting. So that would be my unofficial second bet of the day. That's that 20-1 Calm of Fire. For the Martin Pipe, he went off 13-2.
Yeah,
I think he was going to win it.
Yeah,
the Boss's Oscar was 5th in that race. He shaped up a step up and trip. The step up and trip will suit Calm of Fire as well, because in Leopardstown he stayed on quite well. He finished 3rd out of 20 and at 5-1 favourite over 3 miles the race before the Martin Pipe. So he's got to get to that mark of 149. The Storyteller was 2nd behind Sarda Berley last year, who was off 152. That's the kind of top weight handicap mark that I'll be looking for Calm of Fire to get, and hopefully he will jump the last this time.
Definitely, that's a great pick. Calm of Fire 20-1. I think I really like that. Well, that'll do us for this week. I want to thank Calum again for coming on. It's an absolute pleasure as always.
Yeah, great stuff.
Loved it. Just before we go, just a quick thing to mention. As of next week, we're going to start taking fan questions from the viewers. So if you've got a question you want to ask me or Calum, we will use it next week. All you have to do is either comment on the YouTube video that we'll put up, and I will put links for our Facebook and Twitter pages, and you can ask a question on there, and we will answer it next week. Thanks very much for listening, everyone, and we will see you next week. Cheers.